Hi there everyone, this is Joy and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm sharing another Inspiration Friday video with my friend Fleur. I am using the Heart Day from Crepe Paper chipboard sheet as a color inspiration for my art journal page today. I picked out paints, inks, and other supplies like these heart stencils or heart stamps. This is a roller stamp. And some of the paints that I picked are from the Dina Wakley paint collection, along with some of these craft paints. I do have a gold one up there at the top for the gold glitter that is in the chipboard. I'm going to get started today by gessoing the page that you see on my table with some heavy gesso from Finnabair. And I believe it's Dina Wakley that likes to say that going without gesso is like going without underwear. I love that saying that she has. I have many art journals on the go, and this is one that I kind of made myself, which is just watercolor paper cut down to a little bit smaller than 9 by 12, and I punched 2 holes on the end. I am adding some paper tape from the Jane Davenport collection. The set, I think, is just several rolls of paper tape. Some have designs and some don't. This is just going to add some texture to the background, and this is going on top of the gessoed paper. I'm going to come back in with a thinner strip of the same paper tape from that Jane Davenport collection. This one happens to have some pattern on it, and I'm going to go through and add a few strips of that around the page as well, just to add some more texture to the background. So the tool that you're seeing now is a Catalyst brush tool. It is a silicone tip. It does not have any bristles, and I really like using this for glue, applying it to pieces of paper or ephemera, and I also like to use it sometimes when I don't want to see brush strokes from the bristles of a brush. So here I'm dragging the paint across the page, but you don't see any bristle marks. It's also very easy to clean off. You just wipe it off with a baby wipe, and you don't have to worry about the paint hardening on the bristles because there aren't any. I'm going to go in next and grab some of the darker pink color there. It's more on the red side with a bristled brush. It's because I want those brush strokes this time, and I'm going to go over some of the areas where that paper tape is. Another favorite of mine is using stencils when I art journal or make canvases, and I add to my stash probably a little too much, but they are so useful and you can use them in so many ways. I'm going to be using makeup sponges with some stencils now, and I love using the makeup sponge because all you do is just pounce over top. If you switch colors, then you can get a new sponge, or you can just cut off the end that has that current color, and then you have a clean sponge to move on to the next one. I also like keeping a baby wipe nearby. Because I gessoed the page, the paint I'm adding is sitting on top, so if I don't like what I've done, or the stencil has gotten too wet and the pattern isn't showing up the way that I like in this case, I just go ahead and wipe it away. If I hadn't gessoed the page, I wouldn't be able to wipe that paint off. So I can go back in and reapply after cleaning off my stencil so it wasn't so wet. So when I'm art journaling or working on canvases, I like to mix the sizes or the scales of the stencil that I'm using. This here is a 12 by 12 stencil and has quite a large pattern on it. I'm only going to be using sections of this, but it does add a larger scale to what I've done so far. I'm going to move around the page with this stencil, mixing the ocean blue with that mint green color that's there on the side. So once it dries, there'll be a little bit of a tone difference once the paint is dry. Surprisingly enough, I'm actually enjoying this color combination. I think the page is turning out pretty well so far. I'm going to go in now with some archival ink and that roller stamp with the little hearts on it, and just randomly kind of roll the stamp over the page. I'm not sure if I've told you yet what our inspiration is this month, and since Valentine's Day has passed, we're kind of going with a heart kind of theme. So I have, as I showed you in the beginning, pulled out a bunch of different heart products, stencils and things like that I'm going to be using in the project today. So I'm now changing things up and using a stencil with some ink, works just the same. All the paint is dry, so I know I'm not going to contaminate my ink pad, and I'm moving around the page with this Tim Holtz heart stencil that does have different sizes of hearts on the same stencil, and I'm making sure to use both the small and the larger hearts. So just because I have some paint left over on my table here, I'm just going to use an old hotel key door card and use some of the paint that's on the table and just create some lines on the background. I just pulled out some soft matte gel and a strip of old book paper. I'm going to tear that down into smaller pieces and then adhere it to the top of the page. I did use my heat tool to speed up the drying process, as I'm going to come back in with some of that paper tape and I didn't want the layer below to be wet. So I'm just tearing some of that paper tape off and sticking it to my craft mat, and I'm going to be using some of that wet paint that's there on the right hand side to colorize the tape, and then I'm going to come in with a stamp that I carved myself from some Speedball stamp carving material. Now I just started doing this on my own, and so I'm not an expert. This is just a simple pattern of some circles. I'm going to use some black archival ink because I'm going to be adding some other wet materials on top of this afterwards, and I don't want the ink to run. I've made a few other stamps on my own so far, just simple shapes, just starting off with something that's easy to do. I think I made a carved one in a star shape, and then also a spiral shape and a simple striped border, which you'll see later. The paper tape is now dry, and I'm going to add some onto the page. I'm going to tear some in strips and then cut off the excess. I do have some left over, which I can use on another project. I went searching in my stash again to see if I could find some more hearts, and I found this Dina Wakley stencil, I believe it is, and I'm just going to use the heart there and some of the pink paint. Now I'm going over the pink area already, so this is not going to show up very well. It's going to be like a ghosted image, and in the end, when you see my final project, you really won't see two of the hearts that I'm actually laying down now. Now I'm going to bring in some plain old printer paper, and I'm going to fold it in half and then cut out a heart shape. Since that's part of the theme we're going with this month, I've already added a lot of hearts to the background, so I'm going to cut a shape here, just like we did when we learned in primary school to cut paper dolls or snowflakes. I don't really like the heart that I first cut, so I'm going to go back in and reshape it. Now, if memory serves, I was on Instagram and saw Julie Faye Fan Balzer, I hope I said her name right, do this same idea on her Instagram account. So I highly recommend going over to view that. She has a lot of inspiration on there. I almost forgot to add some gold, so I remembered before I started the next part. Here's that chipboard piece again with all that gold on it. So what I'm going to do here is squeeze out some of the gold paint and grab a lid from one of the Mr. bottles I have sitting on my desk, and I'm just going to add paint circles with that lid. And I'm going to do that all over the page, and it's not going to look that great, but it's okay because I'm going to be covering up quite a lot of what I'm doing. And for this project, I really couldn't stop adding more layers. So I found a heart stamp by Dina Wakley. I took one of the stamps, I inked it up with some black archival ink, and I added a few more hearts to this page. I promise I'm not adding any more layers. This is what the page looks like right now, and I'm going to come back in with that heart mask that I cut out of the printer paper. You'll see that I've stamped on it, just testing a stamp that I wanted to add to the background. I cut a smaller heart as well, and I'm getting out my black gesso. The first time that I ever saw this done years and years ago, I couldn't imagine why somebody wanted to cover up the beautiful work that they just created. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the black gesso, and I'm going to go all around the page and cover up everything that is outside of those two heart masks. I'm going to use the callus tool again, and I'm going to start on the heart and pull off so I don't get any bleeding underneath the heart. I'm going to go all the way around the heart and then start in on the smaller heart shapes as well. I end up adding 3 smaller hearts to this page, but only end up with 1 at the end. I'd love to hear from you, so if you've ever tried this masking technique and covering things up with black paint, leave me a comment and even a link to your site, and I'd love to check it out. Here's what the page looks like. I'm going to head in with my heat tool and dry that black paint. I actually went in again and did a second layer. I'm going to head in here and add on some finishing touches. I brought out some Memories White Unicorn White ink and my Sharpie paint pen. I felt like with all the black from the masking that I wanted to lighten up the page a bit, and white certainly does that. So I'm going to stamp around the page, and it looks like I need to re-ink that unicorn white ink pad, looking back at it now. I'm also going to go in, trace around the heart with the paint pen. This is where I started thinking what kind of sentiment or quote or whatnot I was going to add to this, and I thought to myself, let's make it easy, and I'm going to pull out one of my favorite things, which is this Tim Holtz phrase sticker book called Small Talk. I lay them out on the page where I think I want them. It ends up changing by the time I'm finished, but there are still 3 sentiments on the page. I'm going to go back now and finish what I was doing, which was tracing around the heart, doing a border around the page, just a quick sketchy double line border around the page. And one final detail I'm going to add is some paint splatters. I hope you found some inspiration in today's video, and if you did, please hit the thumbs up button to let me know that you like what you're seeing. Remember, you can visit Fleur's YouTube channel to see how she was inspired by this month's inspiration in the description area below. Thank you so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.